What's going on, everyone? This is Kurt coming back to you for the Lionshare Poker Academy, and today we're going to go over my recent second place finish in the GG $150 500K guarantee that just happened this past Sunday. For any of you who do follow my Twitch streams, I just want to apologize right up front. I was having a lot of lag issues, and I was forced to cut the stream and close down OBS in order for my computer to run properly. So a little unfortunate that we didn't get to stream the final table, but I think we can kind of do something cool for everybody who's been active in the Discord and following, everything going on with the Lionshare Poker Academy, and basically just bring this to you guys rather than bringing it to the entire Twitch community. And also, I'm going to go over these hands in, I would say, far more detail than the way I may have approached it if I were streaming, but also going to try to fly through these as quickly as possible because I do want to get through this whole tournament and we probably have a lot of hands to go through. So I just want to remind you guys to please ask any questions that you have, either by comments that I made or hands that I played during the tournament. I want you guys to feel free asking any questions you want, and we'll definitely get back to anything you may have to say about this tournament that we're talking about here. So just going to get into it now. Pretty good first hand, first situation running into. Obviously, very easy call. Standard shove by him with the ace queen for 10 bigs. So the other thing I want to mention is that I am using a randomizer, which has been going over pretty well the last few days. So for those of you who don't know, you basically, when a hand can take two or three different decisions, you randomize a number, and then you take that action depending on what the number is. So I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, I would say that this specific combo is high frequency check on this board. We're going to be doing a mix of betting and checking, mostly mixing in big bets and then some checks. And then I think it's also okay to have a small part of your betting range be for the small size. I would say hands like this one in particular that are normally high frequency check, but when they do bet, they want to bet small. Same can be said about, let's say, a hand like 8-7 suited or ace deuce of diamonds, maybe things like that are going to bet at a frequency but don't want to put in a whole lot of money. So anyway, I rolled pretty high here. That's why we see me betting. I would normally be checking this board pretty high frequency, and when he check raises, I think we have a pretty easy fold. A lot of the hands that he's going to be check raising are going to be of the 5-4, 5-3, 5-8, 5-9 variety. So we block that his bluffing range pretty heavily. So even though we're getting a pretty good price, I'm just going to fold as well. Fold here. We could possibly end up calling, but I mean, I don't think it's that big of a mistake to end up folding when we block so much of his check raise range. So we called here with Queen 10. This player is about 40 bigs effective. I think maybe we can roll a 3-bet, but I think this hand is going to be pretty high frequency call on the flop. Versus a small size, which I think is probably fine here. I would expect this player to do a fair amount of checking on this board too. So when he bets, I'm definitely going to roll a raise. I don't think we want to be raising this hand 100%, but at a fairly high frequency, and we see us raising here, which I think is fine. And on this turn, things get a little wetter. I mean, the only thing we really have to worry about now is the Jack-9 suited, which is, a very small part of his range. He's going to have a whole lot of flush draws, King, Queen, Ace, Queen, maybe like Ace-10 of clubs, Ace-Jack of clubs, like a ton of hands that we're beating that also could use a lot of protection. So I don't even think I rolled a check here. I think we just want to be 100% bet in this spot. Looking to set up stacks on the river. Also, we want to make a fairly decent sized bet here because there are going to be a few rivers where we're not going to be able to value bet. Any heart, any club, let's say a jack, a 9, king, ace. All these hands are going to significantly move this hand class down in value. So I think we just 100% want to bet here on the turn. We get a fold here, so I think that is a fairly cut and dry spot. And we are 100% ISO here versus limp 3. Oh, I remember this hand. For one, I'll say that these ranges against randoms and are usually quite unbalanced. So yeah, I'm just gonna fast play anything half decent here and assume that he just has a strong hand here. So we end up jamming, and yeah, this one had me laughing pretty hard. So don't do this 30 bigs. I think the limp here is fine. Versus an ISO here, I would 100% call in this player's shoes. I don't think the limp 3-bet gets in, but if it does get in when you get 4-bet jammed on here, you're certainly not calling it off. So not going to stay on that one too long. I think we're pretty much pure call in this spot. A pretty good board for us here. I think I actually rolled for a check. Even though this hand looks really strong, I think it will low frequency check. Then other than that, we're probably going to mix small and big bets on a board like this. I'm assuming I rolled pretty high. That's why we go with a big bet. And he ends up calling. And on the turn, I want to do the same thing here. He can easily have plenty of diamonds that he's check calling with. He could even possibly be check calling Queen Jack or 7-6 at a frequency. So it's not like we just always have the nuts on the flop. And then when this turn comes, it's also going to decrease the value of this hand here. So I don't think we bet this turn 100%. I could be wrong, but I definitely rolled between betting or checking. I don't remember what we did. Yeah, we ended up checking here, which I think is fine. So yeah, I guess we won't go too much more into that for now. And then on the river, I was just wondering whether or not we have a value bet or not. And I guess we basically would need to get called by a hand like ace 10, and then I don't think like 8-7's folding. I don't think 9-7's folding. So things like this. I ended up checking mainly because I also don't want to open up the action for him to be able to check raise us off of what can potentially be the best hand here, which probably isn't like the best way to be looking at it. Like we just want to see if we have enough value to end up betting. And I thought it was close anyway. And I do always preach about how nobody can ever fold. So for that regard, I do kind of like going on the thin side for value. So maybe in hindsight, I kind of regret checking here. I'm pretty sure I checked. But I definitely think we maybe could have eked out a bet here between like half pot and 2/3, something like that. We're definitely going to have some Jack X in our range here too. As well as 6X that needs to value bet, but I think we need to be able to value bet more than just a 6, a 10, or a flush. Could be wrong. This could be too thin and this might be fine. But yeah, we ended up taking it down anyway. Wouldn't mind running that one in a sim just to see how light we can actually value bet there on the river. And here I think we're going to be close to pure call with Queen Jack. And decent size. I'm going to assume that he's mixing bets and checks here. When he bets on these lower boards for the out of position player, I think you want to be leaning more towards bigger sizes here, and he is sizing up a little bit here, I would say, so I think the bet size is fine. That being said, with 2 overs, backdoor straight, backdoor flush draw, we absolutely cannot fold yet, so going to peel one. And on the turn, I definitely don't want to be betting this full weight. With our flush draw here, it kind of sucks if we have to bet and then he ends up jamming. We might be priced in to call if we bet big enough, which I would assume would be the option that I would use if we did decide to bet, because it kind of sucks, but we also want to give ourselves a decent price. He can easily be jamming hands like ace 10, pocket jacks even, which we're not doing great against obviously, but a lot of hands that are going to be able to check jam for value that we're still going to have decent equity by. And on the flip side, we want to mix in some checks here too, just so that if we're betting all of our flush draws on the turn, when we check and the flush card comes in, that essentially means we have 0 flushes if we're always betting them. So I definitely mix between a bet or a check here. I think I rolled pretty high here, so I decided to bet. And these have kind of been spots I've been looking at lately as well as the in-position player, at just what kind of frequency we're betting our flush draws at. And for the most part, it does mix a whole lot. So I think it's good to mix bets and checks here. I think they both have benefits. As much as it would suck to get check jammed on here, we can also absolutely fold better hands by this player. So anytime where we can bet and get our opponent to fold a better hand, that's usually a good reason to be betting. So I can see benefits to both actions here. We just ended up rolling a high number and ended up betting. And luckily just took it down without any resistance. This might be close, but I flicked it in here anyway. And on the 9 here, I think I still want to be pretty low frequency bet for the most part. This player is still uncapped at aces, queens, 9s, and flushes. This player is a little bit more capped than we are, and this board just in general is not great for the big blinds range. So I'm going to play a mostly high frequency check strategy in our shoes right here. this hand also isn't the greatest combo to start bluffing if we were going to. And here I was just trying to think of what our best combos are to bluff. Again, I think this player is uncapped to flushes, pocket aces, pocket queens, pocket nines. So this player could still have like all the strongest hands in his range. This player not so much. I think he's mainly going to be capped at pocket eights for his strongest hand, and then some, let's say, ace five of hearts. That would be a fine double check, and then obviously queen x. So this player's range is far weaker. I think having a spade is decent here. We're also pretty low down in our range overall. So I wouldn't hate betting here. That being said, I think it's still good to be blocking. Let's say, for example, if somebody has Jack 10, that hand is never going to fold to one bet. So I think having a Jack or a 10, possibly blocking some hero calls in that spot would be pretty good as well. Also, blocking some Queen X combos would be good because I would expect most Queen X hands to fold on a board this wet. So yeah, I think I ended up giving up here. I did want to bet here at first, and then I thought a little bit more into the hand that our blockers could probably be a little bit better for bluffing here. So we just ended up checking and play one had kings. This guy had deuces. I would probably look to bluff this hand at some spot. I don't think, even though he has a pair and it looks like he has showdown value, I don't think his hand almost ever wins. So I don't think this is a terrible check down by any means. I'm not going to stay on that too long, but I would definitely mix in some bluffs here with the pocket deuces. And I think kings played the hand fine. And I think this hand can mix call and 3-bet. I rolled pretty high, so I think I decided to 3-bet. And we get called. Very dry board. This is going to be a very high frequency board here. This player is rarely going to have anything too strong. Like, essentially, he never has... I would say he never has a set. I don't think deuces calls here. Pocket fives might get in there, but there's no two pair combos. He never has ace king, so he's really lacking a lot of the strong hands. I think at a frequency he can be flat calling with pocket kings, but that's just like one hand we have to worry about. And then even if that hand does flat, it's probably not doing it 100%. So that being said, we have all the pocket aces, we have all the ace king, all the pocket kings. So we have a lot of strong hands in this spot. So we're just going to be very high frequency c betting here with our entire range. And we get the fold. Same with this spot. I think we can 100% c-bet on this board. We have a ton of 9x. The board is super dry. He's just not going to be able to defend very much of his range, even when we bet a super small size. So I'm just betting everything for a very small size on this flop. And this is close again, kind of similar to the 6-7. And this was kind of close in game, I guess. I would expect this player to be checking a fair amount. I also think that some bigger sizes might be used here because the board's here pretty wet, for one, and for two, he's betting into two opponents. So you would think that this range should be strong. But when he bets a small size on a super wet board, I would just think more often than not, he's probably a little on the weak side. I think if he has like pocket jacks, pocket eights, like the small bet is appropriate. But then everything outside of that wants to get some value and protection, like say for example ace jack, I think would want to bet a little bit on the bigger side. Pocket queens would want to bet on the bigger side because those hands are very likely the nuts on the flop, but on the turn the value of those hands could change dramatically because there's just so many wet turn cards that one pair isn't doing so great on. So I did decide to make a tight fold here. I think I probably should have rolled a check raise at a frequency with one club in my hand. But again, I think people are just like really tight in these multi-way spots when they are continuation betting. And that on top of the fact that he's betting on such a wet board, I think he's probably a little on the strong side. So I think I just decided to fold thinking that he was probably a little stronger than he would be. And I probably don't want to be check raise bluffing with one of my worst combos. So I think we can't fold pairs at this point, so just going to check call. I don't think this hand ever rolls a check raise. Very good board for our opponent here. Turn is also better for him as well. I think even though we're getting a pretty good price here, we probably just have to get rid of it. This player's opening range is going to be pretty strong here as well, off of only 18 big blinds. So this hand could get in there at a frequency, but I think it's really close anyway, so I just elected to fold. And okay, this guy only has two bigs here, so I think I just min clicked it. And we lose to the 10 deuce. Now this board, I think normally I'm pretty high frequency bet here, but I think we probably do work in a check frequency. One being that we don't have a ton of 5x in our range. That being, yeah, I guess we have pocket fives, ace five suited, maybe some king five suited gets in there as well. I don't know if I'm opening 6-5 and 5-4 suited from these positions. Those hands usually play a little bit better when we're in the 50 to 100 big blind range. And here we see that we've got, a 5 big stack, 30 bigs, 27 big, so a bunch of shorter stacks. So these hands might not be in my range. Yes, we have pocket nines too, but I think this player is going to have a lot more 5x. He's going to be defending every suited 5x here. Then he's going to have a lot of 6-8, 7-8 type of hands, and then a lot of 9x as well. So I think we probably want to work somewhat of a check frequency in on this board, but can definitely do some betting too. I think I rolled pretty high. I'm not sure if I like the size. We might actually get the size up a little bit more on this board, but it's kind of whatever. I think this is fine too. Just another spot I've been working on as of late where I may be playing the frequencies a little bit off, so I might look into that hand as well. But I think it's fine. I mean, I don't think that's like a big league or anything. So, and yeah, I remember this hand. He only had 6 bigs, and for 6 figs versus jam, we would easily be calling here. And then he just ends up winding up with the queen. So pretty sure he's not very balanced when he's doing this here, if he's just going to show up with the nuts like that, but not a big deal. Easy defend with king 9, and easy fold, I think, without a diamond, being versus a fairly early position open. And pocket 7's very easy ISO here. See, we're down to only 7 bigs ourselves, and somehow we win on this board. Versus the queen jack, we had to fade quite a bit on the turn there. And yeah, we ended up jamming here. So this is like 16 bigs, I think. I think this is fine. We might be able to raise fold this hand as well. I'm not sure which frequency gets in there the most. I would have to look at my pre-flop charts, but definitely think this hand is winning as a jam. I would also say that just raising here is fine as well. This hand plays pretty well post-flop. So I think the reason I decided jam is because this guy had so many chips, and he'd probably be defending a little bit wider and can be a little bit more aggressive with all these chips. So I didn't mind jamming here. The hand's definitely strong enough, and we end up winning a flip. Aces, obviously a pretty easy decision. Now, the question like we have to ask ourselves first is, do we have any flats? Like, do we ever call here and then fold versus more action? And I think the answer is yes. So this player is jamming 7 big blinds, it looks like. And so, for example, I think a hand like, let's say ace-10 offsuit. I think a hand like ace-10 offsuit is good enough to call in this spot, but I don't necessarily want to just jam it in because we have 4 other people to act behind us. And if any one of these 4 players overcalls, if we jam with a hand like ace-10, we're always going to be like, we're never going to be flipping against the overcall range. So these ranges are essentially going to have us dead. So for that reason, I like just calling with a hand like ace-10 in this spot and then folding versus other action. That is probably going to have us drawing close to dead. And then on the flip side, we want to take our absolute strongest hands and do the same thing with it. Kind of look like we may be able to fold and get away from it and also not discourage other people from leaving the hand. So I decided to just call here and end up winning versus the 7-9, which I think is probably a little too loose of a jam in that spot. Pocket jacks, I think we are mainly supposed to just play at 22 bigs effective. I think we're just supposed to play a jam or a fold strategy. I did decide to 3-bet here. I don't know if we were getting closer to the money or what the situation was, but I think this player in the big blind may have had something to do with it as well because we were both 36 bigs effective. So I think I definitely don't want to just be jamming my entire range in case this guy wakes up with a hand, and jacks is one of the strongest 3-bets I'm going to have. So I think just 3-betting non all in here is fine, and obviously calling off versus a jam and getting pretty lucky versus the aces. I remember when this hand happened, I I was very surprised to see this. So you guys can see if you're going to run deep in a tournament, you definitely need to be getting lucky in spots. So, and lucky we did get. So on this board, I think this is a fairly dry board that we're going to want to bet essentially our entire range here. It could be that we could work in some checks, but again, on these rainbow boards, these disconnected boards, we can be pretty aggressive here. What he calls, I definitely want to mix bets and checks here. I think I want to be betting a little more high frequency on heart turns because I'll likely bluff any heart run out. That being said, I we don't want to just be betting here with 100% of our draws here. Again, going back to the fact that if we're just betting every single straight draw, uh, that means when we check and a straight fills on the river, we essentially like never have straights if we're just betting them all on the turn. So we definitely want to roll here, and I think I rolled low and decided to check. Also, these hands that have quite a bit of equity going to rivers make pretty good checks as well because, well, essentially you have a lot of equity. So there's a lot of cards that can help you. And then on the flip side, even if we don't get there, he can still check and we can bluff river. So it's not like when we just check the turn, we're giving up. So it essentially is going to keep some straights in our range when they do fill, and then also just give us another opportunity to bluff. And if he bets, I mean, we just fold. So I do think a lot of people way overplay their draws and they don't mix in checks as well. So they're kind of face up with their range, and that leaves their checking range even weaker than it should be. So yeah, definitely roll the check here. And this is one of those spots where, yeah, our hand has pretty much zero showdown value. He should be bluffing every 9-7, 7-6, 6-4s, things like that. So I think when he checks here, he definitely has some showdown value. It could be a 5, it could be an 8, could be a slow played ace. He could be trapping a flush, but you know, if he has those hands, he has those hands. What we do know is that we do block flushes, which is pretty good here. So we probably want to be betting on the river when we have a flush, of course. If we're checking straight draws on the turn, that means we're blocking flush draws on the turn as well. So we definitely show up on the river here with flushes. I don't think we ever show up with full houses, which kind of sucks, but he also doesn't have many as well. He never has ace queen here. He's more than likely check raising ace 8 and ace 5 versus a small c bet always. So I think he's also lacking full houses. So I think we still have a pretty significant range advantage and can definitely represent some stronger hands. I think I rolled between a larger bet, like let's say around the 2/3 range, and then a possible overbet as well. So I think we can definitely overbet here. I think like a good ace, let's say if we want to check the turn with ace 9 with a 9 of hearts, I think it would still be worth a pretty big bet here. And then on the flip side, we want to do that with our flushes as well. So we want to mix in those big and larger sizes with our bluffs too. And he ends up calling with the king 8, which I was a little baffled at first. I think the first thing he wants to look to block here is flushes. So he doesn't have a heart. So that right away made me think he didn't have a great bluff catcher. He does block ace king, but I don't think that's very relevant because I'm very high frequency betting with a hand like ace king on the turn. So yeah, I thought this was probably a little bit on the thin side. If this was like the ace of diamonds, I would like his call a whole lot more. And that might also be him not understanding that we are checking back the turn. Like we're still checking back some, like let's say ace 3, for example. We're checking back flush draws. So maybe he thinks we're a little weaker than we should be. And that, again, goes back to the fact that I don't think people disguise their ranges as well as they should. And then, of course, the thing that I say almost on every one of my streams is people just don't fold when they have pairs. So it could have just came down to that. But anyway, I don't hate the call by any means, but I would definitely like it a whole lot more if he had a heart. I don't think he's blocking our value range like that great with his specific combo. And when you're calling with a hand like that, you definitely want to be blocking a good part of your opponent's value range. On this board, so this player called, let's see, how deep are we? We're about, he's 17 bigs effective. I'm not sure if we're in the money or not yet, but I don't think that's too relevant. I think the deeper we get, the more aggressive we can be with the bigger stack. So I would say in general, I want to be mainly checking this board. The wetter these boards are, the more we want to be playing cautiously out of position. That being said, we still are going to have a small betting range, and I would definitely roll some bets with this hand here for sure. I'm guessing that I rolled pretty high here, so I decided to bet. Then on the turn, I'm sure I rolled again. I think this being probably one of the worst kings we have. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. I would definitely open king 7 suited, king 8 suited. Excuse me. So, yeah, I think we can definitely roll between betting and checking here. I don't think the 6 is like that scary of a card. I don't think this player is flying too many pocket 6s. I also think he's jamming most of his pocket 9s pre-flop. So I think our hand is pretty strong. It also needs very little protection against. It's less likely that if flush fills that he's going to have one because we do have a club ourselves. I do think I'm probably going to mainly check here on the turn. but definitely roll some bets. And it looks like I rolled pretty low, decided to check. And now on the turn, the question is, do we want to check call or check jam? And going back to what I was saying before, us not only do we block, let's say if a straight fills with a jack or a queen, we block those combos with the queen tens or the jack tens. And then if it fills with a club, we also block those value combos as well. So I think because of this 10 blocker, we don't need as much protection as we normally would. So I think just check calling here is fine. And then if we unblock some other draws that he may be betting here with, like, ace 10 of clubs or jack 10 of clubs here, I think I might want to fast play a little bit more, because that ensures, for one, he has a draw rather than a value hand, and for two, that he might end up calling it off with a strong combo draw. So yeah, not going to rant too much more about that. I know I'm probably getting a little too in depth there, but yeah, we just decided to check call. And on this river, okay. So now I know that we're pretty close to the money here. I think we were only 20 spots away, and the min cash is, pretty big, almost 2x your buy-in here. I think in theory this hand is pretty much close to a pure call. I haven't looked this hand up yet, but I would say it's pretty close to a pure call. This just comes down to the fact, like, do I think this player is bluffing enough on this particular board, and also in this particular spot, being so close to the money, and him deciding to bluff into one of the bigger stacks, who can easily call here and still make the money, no problem. And I remember time banking a lot here, and I did eventually fold, and I think I'm still happy with that. Again, I know in theory this hand is probably high frequency call, but I'm just not giving players that much credit in this spot to wind up with the bluff here. I know I didn't know anything about this specific player. Maybe I'm making incorrect assumptions, but I didn't have a whole lot of hands with this player, didn't recognize him, and I'm just going to assume that most people are going to be far more leaning towards the value side, this close to the money against another big stack. So I think I folded there after a lot of consideration, but I hate it a whole lot less looking back at it now than I did at the time. So this spot I think is close. I'm not sure if jam gets in here at all. I think it's probably pretty high frequency call at 25 bigs, and then at 20 bigs it probably gets in a lot more higher frequency as a 3-bet jam. So I just decided to roll a pure call here, I think. And versus a bigger bet, this kind of sucks. I don't expect a ton of bigger bets on this board. This board is pretty dry, so I don't think bigger bets are that necessary. So I do think this hand is probably a little bit on the stronger side. So normally if I would have seen a small bet here, I would roll a raise frequency here. But versus a bigger size, I think I'm just going to play pure call in this spot. And this is obviously a pretty good turn for us. It gives us a little bit more equity. Also, I was going to say, I don't think he's ever betting like pocket aces, pocket eights, pocket sevens for that size. I think he would probably bet pretty small with hands that strong on boards that need such little protection. So I'm pretty much thinking I'm never drawing dead in this spot unless he has like the king, queen of clubs or something like that. So I'm not really putting him on full houses, so that's not really going to discourage me from calling another street. Also because we're getting a great price here as well, so I don't think we could fold anyway. And then on the 6, we end up getting a check. And a lot of spots we want to end up giving up with our flush draws here. But the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, what are our worst hands in this spot? Like, what are our bluffs here? And essentially our only bluffs are, or that we call in the turn that don't improve here on the river, would be flush draws. Let's say, for example, if we have 6-5 suited, that hand makes a pair on the river, so it has some showdown. If we have 10-9 suited, we now have a straight. So essentially, we would either be turning the 6-5 of diamonds into a bluff sometimes, which I don't think we have to, because I think it probably has enough showdown value where it can check down, but it may bluff at a frequency. And then, of course, Jack 10 Jack, or we're not calling Jack 10 on the turn. More than likely, if we don't have the flush draw, even though we're getting a good price, I would probably just mainly fold because I think this player is too strong. So essentially, I think the only bluffs we have here are backdoor flush draws, essentially. Again, the 10-9 makes a straight, and the 6-5 now has a pair. So I haven't ran this hand either. I definitely want to run it. It's kind of difficult because it started 3 ways, so his C betting frequency is going to be a little bit different here. But I can definitely run this heads up and see if this hand does decide to bluff. But anyway, I thought this was kind of a no-brainer bluff here because we are just so far down in our range. I thought I meant to put him all in. It looks like I left him just short here. But anyway, I think this is going to be one of the worst hands that we have in our entire range here. And if we're not bluffing this hand, I don't know what hand we're bluffing with. So I decided to bet. I didn't feel very good about it because, again, I did say I think that he's on the stronger side. But, I mean, this is just one of these spots where there's nothing we can do. Like, we can't just be giving up here. Like, if he ends up showing down, let's say, king nine of clubs, and we just allow him to win here, that's just such a disaster. Even himself, I don't think he's opening 6-5 here, but maybe he is. Even if he has a hand like ace-3 that he bets twice and then ends up getting jammed on in the spot, like, are you happy to call here on the river? I know I'm not. I mean, I'm probably not betting two streets with ace-3 either, but you never know how these people are playing. So, yeah, I think a pretty easy bluff spot, although it might look like a give up at first sight. I'm definitely going to look at this hand after I'm done part run with this video. And if you guys want to know a little bit more about that hand, please let me know. I think that's definitely one of the more interesting hands that was played. Easy open here with the ace-10, and on this board, very dry. Going to high frequency c-bet for a small size. And when he check calls, this range should be mostly straight draws, weak 10x. I think some 9x can check call at a frequency. I would mainly choose to check call his weakest 9x combos, and then a hand like 10-9 here. I think I would just pure check call in his spot because he's just blocking so much and his hand needs no protection, obviously. So, yeah, I think we do almost always have the best hand here. That being said, on the turn, I'm not sure if we want to be pure betting here on the turn. I would say this turn is definitely going to be better for our opponent. Our opponent is going to be check calling every combo of 8-6 and jack-8 here. Also, he's still capable of having 9x. He can have 10x. He can have a hand like 7-6, 8-7 that he's going to continue calling with. Those would be arguments for betting, of course, because we do beat a lot of those hands. But I do think we want to be checking this card at a frequency because I think it is a lot better for our opponent here. So this also strengthens our river range here as well. I also said that with the ace of spades, I think I can slow play a little bit more because now we're afraid a little bit more from the backdoor flush draws ended up filling up here. And that also takes away some backdoor flush draw combos he may be check calling flop with that would continue versus a bet on the turn. So I do think that I rolled a little bit of a higher check frequency with the ace of spades here in particular. That being said, I think betting here on the turn is absolutely fine too. And on this river, I expect a high frequency check from him. He can bet like a small amount of the time, maybe like 10 to 15% of the time, but this card is just so bad for him in general. He's going to be playing mostly checks here. And then on the river, we obviously have a very easy value bet. We're going to be bluffing this card a lot if we end up getting to the river with, let's say, King Jack, Queen Jack, King 8, things of that nature. I think we're going to want to bluff this card almost every time. He's also going to have some ace-x combos that check call the flop with that are obviously going to have to call the river. And clearly we have all the ace-x combos dominated, so pretty easy spot there, I would say. Turn check is interesting for sure. I'm curious what the frequency is. It could be very, very much that it might just be a pure bet on the turn, but I think for reasons previously stated that the rolling a check frequency is fine. Versus a bigger bet, I think we have a pretty easy fold here, no backdoor flush draw. And see how deep we are. About 30 bigs deep. I think we probably can roll a check frequency here. I think I still want to mostly be pretty high frequency bet here. If we are having a check frequency, I think pocket jacks would be a decent combo to do it. I'm assuming I roll pretty high if I decide to bet here, or maybe I'm just betting my whole range. I think either are probably pretty reasonable options. And so again, a player I have no information on. I think this is pretty close. I think we probably mostly want to be calling here. I wouldn't be surprised if we may even find some folds. If I could be wrong here, the chart I think may tell us to be folding at a frequency. It probably tells us to jam at a frequency too, but I'm not going to give some random opponent I have zero information on credit for having that much of a 3-bet bluffing strategy from the strongest positions at the table. So I think I rolled between calling and folding, and I think I rolled high enough for call. On this flop, he's probably pretty high frequency bet here. I think he probably works in pocket tens in a 3-bet frequency, although it might be not very high. I think he should be 3-betting jacks pretty high frequency. I don't think he ever has pocket sevens. I don't think he has 8-9. So maybe he works in a check frequency here. That might be fine. Again, on this turn, I think we are going to be pretty high frequency check. If he is having a checking frequency, I think a lot of those hands are going to be in the ace king, ace queen region, as well as maybe even some ace 9 suited or ace 8 suited. If he was bluffing those hands, I think those hands could definitely check at a frequency. So bottom line is I think we want to be checking a lot here. And then once he checks a turn, I just don't see a hand that we're losing to. I think, yeah, he might be checking back ace king here on the turn here sometimes, but the bottom line is even if he has ace king and we bet, let's say 3/4 on the river, I don't think he ever raises here. I think it would just be too thin. Like, we have too many strong hands here. We still have all ace jack suited, ace 10 suited, pocket 10s, pocket 7s, maybe some 7-6 suited if we're getting really saucy. But I would say that once this checks to the river, our range is probably stronger than his. He's definitely a little bit more on the cap side after checking twice. So I do think we can bet here, and I think we want to bet here quite a bit. I think I did roll between the block and the bigger size. That's why we see a block size here. I think both may be appropriate. I'm not 100% sold on that, but I do think, again, that we can just be pretty high frequency block here because we are just going to have such a stronger range than him. And again, even versus this size, I think if he had ace king, he would just end up calling. So I'm kind of interested about what our river frequencies should be and what our sizes are. It could be possible that we're splitting between small and big sizes, but it could be possible that maybe they just want to go pretty polar here between like 3/4 size and maybe like an all-in jam size when this player is capped. So usually when one player's range is capped, that means the other player can use pretty big sizes here. So I may be wrong about the block aspect here. So gonna go for about 5 more minutes, see if we can get through a few more hands. And here I think we have a pretty easy call. We're definitely deep enough to defend here, so at 40 big blinds. And we just have the absolute worst board. This board is going to be a lot better for our opponent. I would be pretty high frequency calling pocket aces here and pocket kings. But that being said, he still has all those hands as well. Just a very small part of our range, and obviously with 8 high, we can't continue. And this, I'm pretty sure, is not it. Oh, it might be. He's pretty short, so it's whatever, but we're not calling. Ace high. Easy defend here. Easy fold. And we are about 12.5 bigs effective. I think this hand pure jams here. And we're lucky enough to hold versus ace jack. I think this is probably a good call. And this player only had 5 bigs, so pretty easy call. And we continue to run pure. Again, one of the key components to running deep in a tournament. So I'm not sure what frequencies are on this board here. Again, I really need to get the 3-way solver so I can run more spots like this. I would assume we can work a bet frequency here, of course. That being said, I just wonder what our worst combos are here. I did roll for a low frequency bet, and I think I must have rolled pretty high here if I'm betting. I think this hand probably mostly wants to check, not having a whole lot going on. It is nice if we end up getting called by an 8 that we have backdoor straight draw and 2 overs to the 8, which is good. But we have no backdoor flush draw, and we're essentially dead to an ace. So I don't think this hand wants to bet super high frequency, but I don't hate it at a small frequency. This turn card is very interesting. I think this player can definitely have ace X in his check call range, but he's going to have some check raises here as well, especially versus a smaller size. He's going to want to check raise at a higher frequency with trips. So in this spot, I'm essentially putting him on 8X and flush draws, potentially a hand like pocket 6s too. So I do think this ace is actually better for our range than it is for his, because we can definitely be betting with hands like pocket 9s through pocket kings at a low frequency too, and those hands are obviously crushing an 8 in this spot and a lot of flush draws. So I do think this card is still better for us than it is for him. I think I rolled between a bet or a check here and decided to check. I don't think this hand wants to super high frequency bet here. I did want to work it in here because if he has any like backdoor diamond draws that he's calling with, those are going to fold on the turn every time. I even think like some spade draws are going to just check fold a lot, especially like the lower ones. Maybe a hand like king 9 of spades or queen 9 of spades might just keep check calling because they also have decent showdown value and overall hand strength. But I do think we probably get a fair amount of folds here. So I really like betting here on the turn too. I just think we rolled a lower number, so we decided to check. And that being said, I think it's still fine for us to work in a bet here. I would think that there may be a chance we get slow play some ace X in the spot. I also think if we bet pocket kings, pocket queens on the flop, and we get this turn, we can check them back at a frequency as well, because these hands are likely the best hand, but also require very little protection versus our opponent's range. So I definitely think we still have strong hands here. I guess I must have rolled low here. Like, I think maybe there's a chance our hand has some showdown value and he's just giving up with a hand like 5-4 of spades. But I don't think we win here a lot, and we actually do end up winning. I kind of forgot what he had, so I guess I thought we did have enough showdown value versus some flush draws that are giving up. So I guess that's why I ended up rolling a give up in the spot too. So yeah, I guess that's kind of good to see. I'm thinking in his shoes, I probably want to mainly be bluffing this spot. Uh, but yeah, it's probably fine with a give up. But I was a little surprised to see this. This is one of the few bluffs that he's going to have here. So I would just expect to see this turn into a bluff a little bit more. But yeah, I guess we'll end it right here. Video's been going for about 40 minutes. So again, apologies if I went through a little fast. I'm trying to, I know we have a lot of hands to go through and I want to breeze through them as quickly as possible. So apologies if I started rambling when I was trying to make a few points or just going through a few too many things. So again, please feel free to comment on, anything I've said about, whatever, any kind of strategy that I'm using, or just any questions that you guys have as to what, any hand that I played, or maybe how you would have done it differently. I'm definitely open to answer any kind of question you guys have regarding this tournament here. So yeah, this is going to end part one, and hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be bringing more parts in the coming days, so definitely check those out in the video section of the Discord. So yeah, appreciate it, guys. It's been Kurt for the Lionshare Poker Academy, and I'll see you in the next one.